welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Justin Sandoval, aka Sandy, and I am joined tonight by my very good friend, Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato. And that's right, you did not hear Tyler's name mentioned on this podcast. No T-roll. So, he's too cool tonight, and he could not make it.
He's been excommunicated to America's way.
He's on his way to Florida right now because he wants to go geek out about something called Royal Rumble.
Some sort of wrestling.
Yeah. So
I don't know
about that, but T-roll, if you're listening to this, which you never do.
No.
So have fun, buddy. Have fun. Hopefully you enjoy every second because it sounds like it's gonna be fun. So. All of that said, before we dive into tonight's topic, let me go ahead and thank the listeners. We really appreciate you listening and tuning in. Please like and subscribe wherever you are listening. And please give us a 5-star rating review. Yeah, that's right, 5 stars. That really helps us. And it goes a really long way of just extending the reach of the kingdom that is the Royal Geek Podcast. So thank you so much. So, with Hero gone, Shamato and I, we're your favorite DC boys here. We thought it would be a great opportunity for us to get real intimate about some DCEU villains.
Considering that it may be the last time they are ever relevant.
Yes, correct. And the reason we're bringing this up is because DCEU is dead.
Yes.
Deader than dead. And we figured we would rank or grade.
Yes, grade.
We're going to grade the villains from every DCE movie / Elseworld / alternate.
Essentially every DC movie after 2013.
Yeah,
like
there we go.
Man of Steel on.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm considering it as an Elseworld is because in James Gunn's new DCU, all of the projects that are not considered the same timeline and storyline, they are going to be considered Elseworld productions. So, all that being said, we need to dive in because we got 17 movies to break down the villains.
Not gonna lie, I was a little surprised when we came to that number.
Yeah, I trust me, I was too. But then when you think about it, the MCU, they're up there. I mean, they're in the 20s. They're like 28, 29 right now, I believe.
At least, yes.
So they're pushing 30. DCEU. I'm glad you're dead because as I'm sure these grades will prove, there's a lot to account for here.
It's just to me, it was sort of like those moments when people think about people who have been fighting a disease for a very long time, and when they die, it's not so much you don't feel necessarily bad. You're just happy that they're at peace.
Yes,
I think that's
so
how
perfect. Oh my gosh,
how I see
I can't say it better myself. So in this installment of Grade the Villains for DCU, hopefully you guys enjoy. When T-roll's back, eventually we'll do a MCU villain grade. And you know what? We'll compare the average grade between the DCEU and the MCU when we get there. So we'll see, because I think the low of lows in the MCU might bring down some of those top tier and average it out with the DCEU. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. All right. All of that said, Shimano, let's get in here. We got 17 movies to talk about, so let's go.
Let's do it.
It all kicked off in a dark, stormy night. No, in 2013. And Man of Steel was released, and honestly, I really liked Man of Steel overall.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
And
actually, a fun fact, this was the first midnight movie I'd actually ever been to, and it was with you.
That's hey, there you go. This is the dawn of many, many nights together when it comes to movie releases. And you know what? This may or may not have been the inception of you being on this podcast. So
possibly.
This is big here. So let's take a minute here to talk about General Zod and what he brought to the Man of Steel overall. So what are your initial thoughts on General Zod and just Michael Shannon and what he brought to this role?
I thought Michael Shannon was super solid. I felt like he was, I think he, for a relative term, he was a top tier villain for the DCEU.
He came to play.
Yes.
He came to play.
I think he was really good. I think he was menacing. I felt like he did a really good job of, showing and to tell you the truth, they did a good job of like giving him some reasons. Like he had actual like there was a plan, there was a reasoning why he was doing what he was doing.
Right.
From his perspective, it made sense what he was doing and why they were supposed to be doing this, and it made sense why he was there, why he was going after Kal-El from both, a personal vendetta perspective and from the literal perspective. Eventually, when he finds out about where the DNA is stored, so like all those things kind of match up. Like it actually has like a coherent storyline, and in that sense, he has clear motives and he has clear reasoning.
Yeah, and I think a real big thing that to General Zod character comes down to the fact that Michael Shannon is able to match the charisma of Henry Cavill.
Yes.
This is Henry Cavill's debut as Superman, and he is a beloved figure nowadays, right? So we're now 11 years since then.
Yes.
Right? And Henry Cavill established himself as this like iconic, like this is really his coming out.
Yes.
Yes, he was in earlier things like The Count of Monte Cristo and
Yeah.
and other things like that, but this was him introduction to the world, really.
Yes.
Like here I am in your face. And Michael Shannon went like beat for beat for
he
with
matched his intensity.
Yeah.
He had the intensity.
Oh yeah. And I'm trying to think of the exact scene. When it's right before Superman's about to break his neck, and he's like on his knees, and he's like giving that like monologue on why he's doing that, and like when he's giving his monologue, like the spit and the foam from his mouth, and he's like yelling at him and like telling him why he's doing this and what the purpose is for, and all that kind of stuff, and then Kal-El's like, I can't afford to let you go, and he like snaps his neck. Like that was a moment of we've never seen before in any iteration of Superman. Like it was
and
crazy.
then the idea of like lots of times they actually were willing to kill a villain, which is sometimes a rarity in comic book movies.
Well, not only kill a villain, but they literally destroyed the entire city. Like,
yes, they destroyed an entire city, and like it was a really cool way to like flip on its head the idea of Superman and what he had to do in that moment.
Yeah,
like you understood. I think Michael Shannon in that speech that you were talking about, you felt his sincerity and the fact that he would not stop. He had pushed.
Yeah.
He had pushed Superman so far, and in that moment, you understood why Superman did what he did in that moment, and you understood Zod's motives and his like complete intensity and his complete and utter like adherence to what he was going to do.
Ruthlessness too.
Yes, his ruthlessness.
And you can even see on Henry Cavill's face as he's getting ready to do it, like his anguish in his face, and he was almost in tears, or he was in tears, and because he didn't want to do what he had to do, but he knew he had to do it. So.
Yeah, he didn't want to. He didn't want to kill. He didn't want to have to kill. I think it was partially he also didn't want to kill another Kryptonian.
There's not a lot left.
There's not a lot left. It's like
to him, there's only a few. Like, and it was the Zod crew, like everybody in the Zod crew.
Essentially, yeah.
Gosh, dude. So okay, so with all that being said, like, how would you grade Zod? And on a grading scale, I mean, we didn't talk about the scaling before this podcast, so we probably should have. Do you want to do this as like a letter grade, A through F, or do you want to go like tier it and do S through F? Or
I think so truthfully, without us doing any research, I think grading it out like in a tier based would be kind of difficult without a visual. I'm thinking like a letter grade.
Okay, cool, great.
I would say for the DCEU, I think he's like probably like an A-.
Okay, all right. So we're throwing minuses and pluses in here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
I think that gives you like the ability to scale things out.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here as well, and I'm glad that you said for the DCEU because throwing that in there is a massive disclaimer.
Yes.
Because of the villains that are to come.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and actually agree with you here. And I'm also going to say an A-.
Yes.
Okay, because I know it's about to come. And
yes.
The performance that he gave as the villain and just his overall performance. It is a rarity.
Yes, I think you have to really think about this. Remember, guys, this is like you go into that like microbiology class where you feel like you are the stupidest person alive. You get your test back, you see like a 65, and your teacher's like, "You got the highest grade in the class." And you're like, that's how you should feel about these DCEU rates. We've graded on a curve relative to the other works inside the DCEU in a way. That's how I'm thinking about it. I'm not, grading against. I'm not saying looking at, comparing this person to, Thanos. I'm not grading this person against, Azula from Last Airbender. I'm not grading this person against any of the great 007 villains. This is kind of in a vacuum in a way.
Yeah. Okay. So Zod lands at A-.
Yes.
All right. We're gonna move on to the next property for DC.
All right.
And this is 3 years later in 2016.
Yes.
And we are gonna be talking about Batman v Superman:
Yes.
Dawn of Justice. So the hype around this movie was insane.
Yes.
Like the hype was it was crazy. It was beyond imagination.
Yeah. Because I think it was one of those things where it was like you saw. Mm-hmm. Oh, you had a very solid start in Man of Steel.
Yep.
And then you were like, okay, we're going to jump off and we're going to make this epic.
Yes. And they kind of they had a lot of catching up to do with Marvel. That was the biggest issue, I think. That was the biggest issue with this because they threw a whole lot in this movie. And here's something. Grade the villain. That's what we're here for.
Yes.
Right? The main villain of this movie was Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes.
All right. So that's gonna be a main grade. We will give a subgrade for Doomsday. Okay.
Yes.
Because he played a massive factor into this movie as well. So dual grades. Jesse Eisenberg. First thoughts on Jesse Eisenberg for Lex Luthor.
Okay. So in my opinion, the way I thought about it, I actually had a slightly more positive opinion of him going into the movie. I'm not saying after the movie. I'm saying going into the movie, I understood the direction, or I thought I understood the direction they were going in the sense of like where they were going with Lex Luthor. Because I think what they were thinking about, like, okay, so we're going to kind of turn the idea of Lex Luthor on its head a little bit. He's going to be more of this. I think they're trying to get at the idea of like the tech billionaire, like that type. Correct. That they were trying to go at, and Jesse Eisenberg had already played a tech billionaire in Social Network, and he had been pretty solid in that role.
Oh, fantastic, absolutely.
So I think that thought process I felt was a decent thought process to go at. In the sense of, so I understood like where he was going. I was like, okay, I understand where you're going. I feel like a lot of people were really down on him as the potential of Lex Luthor, and it turned out to be quite accurate. But going into it, I actually was relatively positive about the idea of it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Jesse Eisenberg fan. I think that he has a lot of underrated independent films, and his performances in those films, I feel like they need more recognition. I mean, Adventureland alone is
Adventureland's super solid.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude, so solid for the Jesse Eisenberg. But obviously, Social Network, like he comes to play. Like he is the guy that carries that movie. And I mean, the tech billionaire was a different take on the Lex Luthor, and you're right. I did come in as well with the Jesse Eisenberg, like he's got the chops, he can do this, right? But I don't know. I think it took me a majority of the movie to buy into his quirky, like his tics, like Lex Luthor, and by the end of the movie, I might be a little higher on Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor than you, but just by a smidge. But I think he did a decent job with what he had to work with, because with the introduction of Batman in this universe, and I mean, even towards the end of this, like Wonder Woman, right? Like, there's a lot going on here in this movie on the superhero side, where I think it kind of pulls away from the actual lens of Lex Luthor.
Well, when you have to like take a step aside to like introduce all these other
Correct.
characters
Yes.
and storylines, it's hard. Like, there's a reason why you can't just. There's a reason why there's a lead up to the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
to use an MCU, like they had multiple movies to set up to where you can focus in on what's actually happening in the storyline and not having to introduce 6-7 different characters, you know?
Oh, I know. And instead, you're introducing like three,
Yeah.
3 of the 7 of Justice League
Yes.
in this movie, in one movie, right?
Yes.
Like it's pretty intense. So I mean, it takes a little bit away from Jesse's Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I towards the end of the movie, I was starting to buy into Lex Luthor and what he was bringing to the table, but the fact that it had to take towards the end of the movie to get there is where I'm going to knock it on its grade. So let's go ahead and give it a grade now. All right. So Shamato, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, where would you grade that?
I'm gonna go with a D plus.
Okay, D plus.
Yes.
I mentioned that I'm a little higher on him than you were. I'm actually going to go C plus.
Okay.
So I'm going to go C plus there. I don't know. There's something. The ending of the movie is what kind of gives the believing in him gives me that little bump. But
now, when you say the ending of the movie, are you mean the end credit or like the post credit?
both, like the post credit and then like him leading up to Doomsday's creation.
Gotcha.
I think that he comes with the intensity.
Yeah.
When he's getting ready to activate Doomsday, and I don't know. I'm feeling him in that moment.
Yeah.
Which he activates Doomsday, right? And so let's go ahead and talk about Doomsday for a second here, all right? Honestly, he didn't get his due, to be honest with you.
No.
In the comic books, he has a massive, massive storyline that they crammed into the back 10 minutes of the movie, right?
Yes.
And Doomsday is this iconic villain in the comic books that destroys Superman, like completely obliterates him, and it sets up for a crazy run. And I don't know what they were thinking here by just doing this little one-off.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, it was a mess.
Yeah.
An absolute mess.
Yes. And if I remember correctly, the CGI wasn't super.
No. CGI was terrible.
Yes, was not great.
CGI was terrible. He comes onto the scene. He immediately is destroying the city. Fights Superman for a little bit. Wonder Woman comes into the play, and it's fantastic seeing Wonder Woman in that opening scene. Great, fantastic. He beats her around. Batman comes in. Batman holds his own against Doomsday. Why? How? Why?
Yeah,
no idea. And then
because he's Batman.
Superman and Doomsday go back at it, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Superman looks like he's defeated, beat. Is beat, dead.
Yeah,
right, destroyed, and Doomsday somehow is defeated by Superman's last efforts. Right,
yes,
like that's it, all within 10 minutes. I promise you, 10 minutes, maybe even 8 minutes. Like I promise you, it's not a long time.
Which, truthfully, in a way, because they shortchanged Doomsday's character, it also shortchanges the sacrifice that Superman makes.
Correct.
Because it's almost like this nameless, faceless villain instead of like against a villain that you like really like you dislike or you feel a certain type of way about, or you're like, this guy's OP. Like any of that kind of things, any of those things, you don't get time for those things to settle in your mind enough for the sacrifice to mean as much as it's supposed to. Because, I mean, the Death of Superman comic book is one of the greatest releases of any comic book ever.
Oh, for sure. Like
100%. In a way, they undercut Superman in that way, in that sense as well, because his you're not allowed to savor like the idea of Doomsday long enough for it to mean anything when he fights Doomsday.
Correct.
You know?
Yes. And talking about the comic books here, I have the sealed sealed
Yes.
volume of the Death of Superman. Like
That is, I mean, that was truthfully that was a stroke of genius by the Superman or by DC in that moment, because essentially they doubled their comic book sales for a lot of people, because
Yeah.
there was a bunch of people who wanted to you wanted a sealed copy and you wanted one to read, so
Correct.
you buy
That's
both.
true. Yeah, you buy both. And I did not buy both. I bought one.
Yes.
But then later on, when they released the Death of Superman as a whole compendium,
Yeah.
that's when I purchased the entirety of it. But I still have the like sealed in plastic, all white with the Superman logo in the middle.
Yeah.
Like Death of Superman. Like it is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of my treasured comics that
Yes.
I own. But okay. So how you grading Doomsday here?
Truthfully, with a twist of a knife, I'm gonna give it a good old fashioned incomplete.
Incomplete grade.
Like
Yeah.
legitimately,
Well,
I think that
the
is
problem. The problem with incomplete grade is that it's an incomplete with the intentions of completing down the road. Like I feel like when you say incomplete, I feel like you're eventually going to complete it. Like I don't know.
no. See, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Like that's the entire feel about
Yeah.
the DCEU, about this character, and about a lot of things that they did.
Yeah.
Was like there's
So-
all these things that are like out there and just hanging out there. I think an incomplete is
Okay.
like, you know,
You didn't finish, and that's a final.
yeah, it's like, yeah, you just kind of walked out.
I'm gonna. I'll allow it. I'll allow the incomplete, but I'm gonna grade it an F. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
it was a fail. It was a 100% fail on every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Every aspect. So that is gonna close out Batman v Superman.
And one last thing, I think part of like the negative nature of Doomsday negatively affects Lex Luthor's, you know,
Yeah.
you
yeah,
know,
good point.
his, you know, legacy in the DCU
Motives
as well.
and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the
But,
true villain of
yes.
the movie is Martha. That's the true villain of the movie. But we
Gosh.
won't get into that. We won't get into that. All right, next movie.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad.
Yes.
All right. So there was actually a lot of hype behind this movie as well.
Yes.
Coming off of Batman vs Superman, I don't understand the hype, but it was in the same year, same release year.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were getting the Joker, you were getting Harley Quinn, which was unheard of
Yeah.
at this time. Like
Yes.
it was the fact that Harley Quinn was going to be in a movie was insane because of her inception in Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
And then her taking over comic books and everything. Like you never actually thought that we would live in a world where a live action Harley Quinn
Yeah.
would be a thing. But it was coming.
Yeah.
Right? And it was Margot Robbie and it was off of Wolf of Wall
Yeah,
Street.
you got Margot. Yeah, you got Margot Robbie and Jared Leto,
Will Smith.
and
Yeah.
Will Smith. Like there's so many big names in it, you
A
know.
lot going on.
Yes. And then I think part of the reason why there was such hype is it was like we're gonna make the idea we're gonna make the villains the heroes.
Correct.
You know,
Yes.
that way.
Which, in the comic books, I mean, Suicide Squad has a great run.
Yeah.
It really does. Like it is. DC Comics is tenfold better than Marvel. Like the storylines are so deep.
They're so good.
So good. This is not. We're not talking about comics right now, right? We're talking about this movie and. Villain of the movie, I mean, Enchantress, yes, right?
Yeah.
That's the villain we're going to grade here.
Yeah, technically.
All right. The villain of the movie, technically played by Kara. I don't even know how to say her freaking last name, dude. It is-
Devangelo.
yeah, sure. We're going to go with that. Devangel. Yeah, we'll go with that. I think it's Devangeline, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like this was like her first big acting role, like as a supermodel turned actor, right?
Yeah, like she had been in Paper Towns before that.
That was like deep indie though, right?
But yeah,
Like,
that was like an indie. And this was her first like step into like the real like movie
mainstream world.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, visually, like costume design, yeah, I thought the Enchantress looked pretty cool, right? And her being a part of the quote unquote team initially, right? But then she's like unlocked, and then now she's like this overpowered, crazy, magical, like sorceress, and I don't know, man. This was tough for me. This was a rough ride for this movie because I mean the hype going into this movie compared to the outcome of this movie are drastically on two ends of the spectrum. Like it is bad. It is bad.
Yeah, it is not good. I think there's a line that Harley Quinn says that I kind of like. I think epitomizes like the way that the Suicide Squad felt about itself. And when they're at the bar and she's like, "Normal's just a setting on the washing machine." I feel like it's meant to be like this super deep like idea, but it is just like this superficial like statement and kind of like fart sniffy kind of idea. Like it is just like I feel like they were trying to do something that was more than it really should have been, And I do think I think you got to throw the Joker in as the villain in this as well. Like, I mean, I think because of the way that he's like kind of the opposite to Harley Quinn and everything like that. I think everyone else in the Suicide Squad you can consider to be the heroes. And then you have Enchantress and like the Jokers, who you would say would be like the villains.
Okay, yeah. I mean, will we grade Joker here? Is this where we go? Is this the movie we grade Joker? Yeah, it is.
I mean, where would you?
Yeah,
there'd be nowhere else to really grade him.
All right, so Enchantress villain number 1, right, and Joker side villain, right? Like, that's how. Okay, all right, yeah, and then added the Joker into the mix. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you established the foundation here of what we're grading in this movie, because it really is interesting. It really is about what the heck was the purpose here, right? Yeah. Enchantress, main villain, big, overarching, like crazy, destroying city, town. Suicide Squad activated by Viola Davis as Amanda Waller.
Yeah,
fantastic at that role.
Yes,
like absolutely fantastic.
If you really want to talk about the villain, like maybe Amanda Waller. But
maybe not.
I think that it's getting a little bit too much into.
But we're talking about Enchantress here. But then Joker is off on the side here, like kind of doing his own thing. And tied to Harley Quinn, but
not really.
Like,
I think that one of the biggest issues they did with the Joker.
There's a bigger story there.
Yeah,
there's a bigger story there.
I think part of the issue is this idea that you either had to have a lot more of the Joker and made him the villain,
right?
Or you needed a lot less of the Joker and made him like just pop in like very small snippets. I think they gave him too much
and didn't
not
execute
enough.
Yeah, correct.
They fell in this like uncanny valley situation where they turn him into like a B villain when he's the villain of the DC universe. And you're like, oh, we're gonna have him sit on the sidelines.
Right.
It was just a ridiculous waste of one of their greatest properties.
Correct. And yeah, Joker is big league. He's big league, and he did not even get remotely enough of his due. So, Enchantress. What kind of grade would you give Enchantress?
Let's see. Maybe like a C minus.
Okay, C minus. Interesting grade there. I'm gonna go a little lower.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with a D minus.
All right.
I don't know. I just think it was too much. She was a little too extra, in my opinion. Yeah, I had to go lower.
All right.
All right, Joker. All right, so he had some interesting moments in this movie.
Yeah, it was an interesting idea.
Right.
Yeah, but once again, like, you either got to tease him or you have to, like, let him be the villain,
Correct, yes.
So, I feel like with just the execution alone, I got to give it, like, an F.
Honestly, I am also going to give it an F with you, because that was very, very bad. Like, Dude, it was. I don't know what they were attempting there, but it was nothing like the Joker we have, like come to
know and love
and appreciate. And the fact that you're doing this in 2016, you were removed from the Heath Ledger Joker.
Essentially, you're talking about like potentially like either the greatest or top 2 greatest performances of the Joker ever.
Right. Yes. Correct.
And essentially, when you think about it, there's been so many hits on the Joker, like in the sense of like how many of them have great performances.
Correct.
Like,
yes.
Great. Like you like even the like going back to, I mean, every live action one has hit except for this one. Like Joaquin Phoenix was great as him. Heath Ledger was transcendent as the Joker. Jack Nicholson, I think one of the craziest things is how great those two were burying Jack Nicholson's performance in a way from the 1989 version, with how good he was.
For sure.
And then you have, one of the greatest voice acting performances ever in Mark Hamill as the Joker, and then you have this literal turd, in where you're just, everything about it was just wrong.
Yeah. And so F, right? We're going to stick with F here.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. When you have the legacy of Nicholson, you have Ledger and Hamill, like you have these iconic names.
Yes.
That each bring their own flair to the Joker. It's just, what were you doing? What were you thinking? That kind of thing. And the fact that you went to print and were like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's good. It looks good. Let's publish. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nah.
No.
Back up. All right. Next movie. We need to kind of speed this up because we are.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Get ready, because I think we can fly through these next ones. Wonder Woman. All right. So, villain.
Ares
is the main villain. Sir Patrick, I guess, is what he's known as.
Yes.
The majority of the movie until the very end. Very forgettable, honestly.
Yep.
Like, I'm right now recalling him. If you actually go back and watch Wonder Woman like a second, a third time, it's not as good. It does not hold up.
Yes. I think kind of what happened.
First watch, stunning, absolutely fantastic. You're gripped and you're in the moment and you're absolutely like ready, right? You watch it a second, third time, and it is like there's a lot of pandering going on in that movie, man, and it is kind of atrocious to watch.
Yes, I think another one of the issues is it was coming off to, which we just been talked about, 2 very bad movies.
Yes, correct.
So I think it was just like moving in the positive direction was part of what was so great about it, and I think I don't know how we almost kind of forgot about how bad the Ares CGI was that first time.
Yeah. It was not good.
It is not good at all.
And it shows in the last battle scene, like
it's
big
so
time.
Bad.
They had to make the environment nighttime because they were trying to hide a majority of the CGI, which when you have questionable CGI, you can almost guarantee it's going to be nighttime because that's the biggest attempt to cover it up.
Yeah.
But terrible. And I mean, Ares as a human that's portrayed in the movie, like, yeah, okay, cool.
I mean, it was a decent, like, it was a nice little twist they had.
Right, back and forth, right? And so, like, I would give, like, the human performance of Ares a solid C.
Yeah.
But Ares overall, I'm going to go ahead and give it an F because it was just forgettable. Very forgettable.
Yeah, I would say F as well.
Okay, great. We're going to move on there because it's not worth it. All right.
No.
Later on in that year, 2017, it's Justice League.
Yes.
And Steppenwolf would be villain A, and I don't even know if I would consider Darkseid in this movie at all because he's literally like a frame. He's a frame.
Yeah, no, he is.
Yeah.
He's the same way you think of when Thanos was at the end of like a random like an end credit.
Yes. But we'll get back to Darkseid because he comes back.
Yes.
We get more of him,
Yes.
right? So Steppenwolf, CGI, absolutely terrible.
Actually, very similar to like the Ares situation, where
Almost
it was
looking
just like
identical to Ares as far as the feel and vibe of him, like kind of like a Greek god looking type of thing, right? Yeah. It was not good. There's a lot. Same problem as Batman versus Superman, right? Like same problem with the attention mainly on the heroes, and then the villain doesn't really get his due, right? And I mean, Steppenwolf was very forgettable too, right? Like he had this gargly, raspy voice, and looking at him,
you
CGI,
never really had any feel for him.
Yeah,
like
the CGI looked very cartoonish, like.
Yes, it was very cartoonish. Everything was about it was in the. It was very cartoonish. You didn't feel like there was really any stakes with what was happening.
Correct.
Because of that, I think that was partially because of the CGI, partially because of the acting. There just wasn't any like you didn't feel invested in any of the characters.
Yeah.
In that sense, and I think Steppenwolf didn't have any like his drive wasn't there. His reasoning, like the same things that I said positively about Zod from Man of Steel, would be the opposite in Steppenwolf. Like he had his motives weren't really that clear. Like it was, you didn't really feel anything. It was no like with a villain. Like the ultimate villain moment is that moment where you catch yourself and you're like, oh, I understand what you're doing there. Like that's where where you have a solid basis for a villain. It's when in your own mind, when you're watching a movie for a second, you're like, oh, you understand what they're doing, because that's when you're creating that moment in like your own mind and own humanity, where it's like, oh, villain, hero, is it just this a different side of a different coin? Is it the idea from the great idea from like the Joker, where it's like every all it takes is one bad day,
right?
That type of idea, like. That's just kind of what you're wanting to draw out of your audience, is those moments where you're like, I can see where that person's coming from, and then you start to doubt your own motives and the motives of the heroes,
Sure.
So that's what you're trying to do there, and Steppenwolf had none of that.
Yeah. Gosh, dude, I'm gonna have to grade that also an F. Like it was bad.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Yeah, I'll go with an F
all
as
around,
well.
all around bad. Gosh, dude, like very forgettable for Steppenwolf as well. All right, let's see here.
Do we want to drop the Snyder Cut right here, or do we want to wait for?
No, we'll wait. We'll wait. We'll let it build. Because it was released so much later.
Gotcha.
All right, so we are in agreement there as well. All right, so moving on to the next movie. We have Aquaman. I feel like Aquaman, I mean, coming off of the run that DCEU was on, was kind of a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
Like it was, I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was like right even keel, right?
Yeah,
and,
I think it was similar in Wonder Woman in the fact that it seemed like it was a pointing in the right direction.
Yes, I agree. 100%. Orm is the main villain, Patrick Wilson.
Yes,
and him and Aquaman's dynamic were completely opposite in this movie. I do think they played off each other very well. And you kind of can see Orm's point of view and his perspective in this movie. Like you can kind of get it, right? Like he is the son, right? The king, but he's not the wanted son. Like you could feel with that, right? And you can get with that.
I kind of see it as like for some reason I kind of see it as a way of like it's like a reverse Black Panther, like in the sense that it's instead of the chosen son, it's the outsider son that's actually wanted. In that sense where it was like, well, Killmonger, he would just all he wanted to do was be a part of that family and like come in, whereas like Aquaman comes in and he's the chosen one. He's the Orm just wants to wants to rule. Like he
Right,
wants
yeah.
to be
His birthright.
Why wouldn't it be
For
his
so many
birthright in a lot
years,
of
he
ways?
was under the impression that he was the heir to the throne. Like
Yes.
why would he not expect to be the heir to the
Yeah.
throne, right? And then all of a sudden, in his late 30s, right?
Yeah.
He's all of a sudden not the rightful heir to the throne, and now everything that he's been doing and accomplishing is no longer
And not only
right?
that, it's someone who isn't even from like
he's from the surface
Atlantis.
world.
Like
Yeah.
it's a world that
And it's only because
he doesn't
he
know.
was the firstborn from one half of the marriage. Like,
which also like truthfully isn't from a royal bloodline perspective is actually like completely
yeah,
insane.
yes,
Like
I
he's
agree.
not. He would not be considered the first. Aquaman in a normal royal
He's a
bloodline would
bastard.
not be considered the true firstborn.
Yeah, correct.
know?
Correct. So I feel like Patrick Wilson did a great job of his portrayal of
Yes.
Orm. What would you grade him here?
I'm gonna give him. I'm gonna give him a C.
Okay. All right, a solid C. I'm actually gonna go B minus. I'm gonna
Yep.
go B minus here. We're talking about DCEU only,
Yes.
right? So yeah, I think I would give him a B minus. We will circle back around
Yep.
because there's kind of more to talk about there with the sequel release in 2023. So the next property that we're talking about is Shazam.
All right.
Very interesting that this got a film in the first place, right? Because
Yes.
I never would have ever imagined that Shazam was going to get a full feature length film.
Yes.
And the way they did it, it was kind of refreshing as well
Yes.
because Zachary Levi came on strong during
Uh-huh.
Shazam, and you kind of needed a villain to match that. And let's go ahead and cast Mark Strong, only
Yes.
one of the most at that time powerful actors at that time, where he was almost in everything, right? And he was, I mean, he still does have a gripping performance in whatever he touches. Like he is scene stealing, he is intense, he
Yeah.
is like, as an actor, this guy can do no wrong, right? But his character in this, I don't know, it kind of felt like it was in a completely different movie. Like
Yeah.
it was a little off-putting, but there were still some redeeming qualities to it. It was kind of weird. It was a weird performance.
I understand what you're saying there. It was almost like they told Zachary Levi and the rest of the actors, "Hey, you're in an action comedy," and they told Mark Strong, "You're in a drama."
Yeah.
Like
for
so,
sure.
it was like
for sure.
So it was. There is like a difference, and I think. And it's hard because there's a line there that's kind of difficult to run with when you're saying, okay, so this is like he was like maybe 12? Was he, would you say it's just,
like 13, I think.
okay, like 12 or 13. You're like, okay, we're going to put a 12 or 13 year old in a adult body. And not only do you have to make this like 12 or 13-year-old act like a 12 or 13-year-old, you have to say to this adult actor who's playing this, who's, playing a 13, trying to pretend that he's a 13-year-old in his own body. So like he has to play over the top this like, kind of geeky, childish nature. Immature nature. And then you're throwing up somebody who is supposed to be like a CEO of a company who is supposed to be a villain of some type. It's hard. It's a hard line to like match those two up,
Yeah. Yeah, but I think he does have some redeeming qualities in there. Like there's some performances that Mark Strong gives as Dr. Thaddeus Savannah.
Yeah.
What a forgettable name, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. What would you grade this?
Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where in the C's I want to put him. I think I'll go with a C minus.
That's exactly where I have him for mine. C minus. It's just hard to give Mark Strong a failing grade. Below 70, right?
His portrayal of Merlin in the Kingsman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. So good, dude. So good. But yeah, so we'll C minus there.
Yep.
Shazam, one of the better DCEU properties. So, all right, moving on. that same year there is a alternative universe, aka Elseworld, release of the Joker.
Yes.
All right, and the Joker villain, tough to say, right? Like it's an interesting. It's like it's a situational villain, right? Like it's like you're a villain of your own mind, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So what would you classify as the villain here? Would you say the villain is Joaquin Phoenix, or would you say the villain is
Is it Thomas Wayne?
Is it Thomas Wayne, or is it like the newscaster? Right? Like, I mean, what would you say? Robert De Niro? Like, is it Robert De Niro?
Truthfully, I would say that, or is it society? Like, if you really want to get down to it, like the most, like the one where I'd fall the most would actually be society in this moment. To the defense that I'd be all right with just saying like
this environment as a whole.
Yes, the environment as a whole, and kind of.
I'm going to go ahead and say this, okay? Here, let's give it some direction.
All right.
The environment as a whole, yes, sucks and everything, right? But the Joker and his character in this movie makes his decisions based off of society. But in the end of the day, he's a full component of what he chooses.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and grade the Joker as a whole, him as a villain, as Joaquin Phoenix, and everything that he does.
All right. So in the world of the DCEU,
yes,
I think you got to give him an A+.
Yeah.
like in the sense that you're just looking at it like he has to be in that like tier in my mind.
He's in the A's. I gave him an A-. You gave him an A+. I gave him an A-. It is a fun portrayal of the Joker. I mean, that's the step scene alone is so good. It is so much fun. Wondering, is it in his head? Is it real life? Like the whole reveal, like where Zazie beats his character, and it's all in his head with him. They have a relationship, and she's like, "What are you doing? Get out of my apartment!" Like that kind of like. That was wild. I enjoyed that twist to it, and the is he not crazy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going A-. It's in the A's, for sure. All right. Chugging along here. We still have a few more years to get through. We are now in 2020. So
all right.
Birds of Prey.
All right.
Harley Quinn gets her second feature film here.
Yep.
And she brings a lot of other actors in characters with her, female-led, obviously.
Yes.
We get The Huntress, Black Canary. We get Renee Montoya. Victor Zsasz, I guess, would be considered one of the villains here. But the main one would be Black Mask, right? I say we just grade Ewan McGregor's Black Mask.
Yes, I think that will be the choice to make here.
Kind of forgettable.
Yes.
He has a lot of star power with his name, but I feel like he only had like 2 scenes in this movie where I actually remember him actually being a character.
Yeah.
And it's the one where he's torturing the people hanging in the I guess meat locker, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. And then the end. Dude, man, this is a dumpster fire of a movie for sure. Harley Quinn was the greatest thing about this movie.
Yeah, she was really good in it.
Margot Robbie is a once in a generational actress. Like
she's really, really good.
Yeah, she's good in all aspects of what you consider good.
Yeah.
She is it. So that playing off of a terrible script and a forgettable villain, how would you grade Black Mask?
I might be giving like Ewan McGregor a little bit more credit. Just because it's Ewan McGregor.
Okay.
And like I just, I'll give him let's go with a C-.
Okay. Very, very generous there with that C-. I'm actually going to give him a D because of how little I feel like he actually contributed to that movie.
Yeah.
Because it really is. If you think about it, like
you're right. He doesn't.
The main
do
focus is on Harley Quinn.
Yes.
And he just happens to be there.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing. He's lucky I didn't give him an F, but because he's Ewan McGregor, I give him a D. So, all right, moving on to a movie that I hate the grade I'm about to give this villain, but only because of who the actor is. But Pedro Pascal coming in as Maxwell Lord here.
Yes.
Very, very. We got to grade Cheetah too. I mean, I feel like we got to grade both of these.
Yeah.
I don't want to
I
do
guess,
that.
yeah.
Pedro Pascal, quite the personality, right?
Yes.
He is at this time like he is like living life right now. Like
Yeah.
he is Mandalorian high. He is the sought after, and he is the Hollywood man right now in this year, right?
It's crazy. Like, this may be legitimately his only miss.
I agree 1,000%, man, because he has been in some bangers.
Like, I
absolutely
mean,
some bangers.
I like Mandalorian, Game of Thrones. Like,
Yeah.
his run as the Red Viper, like, was elite.
Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna bring that movie is way better than it deserved
Oh
to
my
be.
gosh,
Like, that movie
dude.
was so good.
Actually, that movie deserves a whole review on its own,
Yes.
man, because there was so much to that movie,
So
so
good.
many layers, and Pedro Pascal only added to that.
Yes. Last of Us. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he's just
Yeah,
Like-
he's it, man.
Yeah.
Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, like
Yeah.
incoming. Get ready, right? So yeah. So how would you grade his? All that being said, how would you grade his Maxwell Lord?
D-.
D-. Okay. All right. Man, Pedro gets the bump for me, and I'm gonna go D+. All
Yeah.
right. So, gosh, dude. Yeah, D+. And now on the flip side of that, you have Cheetah, Kristen
Yes.
Wiig. Now, Kristen Wiig, I think, is a phenomenal actress. I think she does.
Yeah.
I think she
I
does.
think she does great with comedy. Like,
Yeah,
she
she
is
does
a
great with
great
comedy.
like
This role was interesting for her because she kind of brought like a comedic element to the role.
yes.
But then when the direction needed to go serious and needed to go more focused,
Yeah.
we kind of lost her a little bit.
Yep.
We kind of lost the the magic that she has and the
Yep.
charisma that she has. So like I don't know, man. I think I would give her an F. I honestly think I would give her a wholehearted F in this movie.
I'll agree with you on that one.
Hey.
I'll put it down there in an F. I just feel like I don't know. Like, I feel like there just wasn't like she could not get on the level that needed to be done to
Correct.
have like the intensity. of that character.
Correct. I agree 1,000%. And I don't want to spend any more time talking about her. So,
Yep.
now enter
Moving on.
DCEU's Lord and Savior, James Gunn. He comes on the scene here with the Suicide Squad.
Yes.
I feel like just him choosing the title of the movie, of adding the in there,
Yeah.
it's just that extra little poke and little jab on
Yeah.
like, this is how you do a movie, right? And he comes in, and believe it or not, the villain of this movie is Starro. Like, that's the villain of the movie, right?
Yes.
Like, it's the threat of Starro, and
Yeah. I mean, the only other argument I would say would be, but once again, Vanessa Waller. Like, is she?
Amanda Waller. Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, I don't know why
yes,
I said.
yes. Amanda Waller.
Yes.
And yeah, but I wouldn't even consider. I mean, she's working for the government. Like, government people are supposed to be schwarmy.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? No, I didn't say that right. I don't know. Slimy. They're slimy.
Slimy.
Yeah.
I think
don't
you're
know.
thinking smarmy,
Smarmy,
but like
not really.
that doesn't really
Yeah.
work in that.
Let's go slimy.
Yes,
I like
yes,
slimy.
slimy.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm thinking of.
Underhanded.
One too many drinks in. But yeah, I don't know. She kind of played that role all right. Like as a government role. Like it's slimy, right?
Yeah.
She's not truly a villain, but she's not truly a good guy too, because you can't never trust government, right?
Yep.
So I mean, like Starro is the villain, but Starro brought them all together, that kind of
Yes.
thing, right? So it's like the villain of choice or villain of
Yeah.
chance. Like
It almost felt like
it served its purpose, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he served his purpose. It almost felt like it almost felt like in a TV series when there's like a monster of the week.
Yeah.
Like that kind
correct,
of idea where
correct.
it was like you don't really there's nothing about this specific this villain is really just a narrative to move the hero's journey forward. Like there's nothing really on the other side. They don't really detract from
Correct, yeah.
from it, but they're not really adding anything extra.
But I think Starro served its purpose though,
Yes.
as a villain. So like honestly, I'm gonna rate this a B+ because I feel like maybe if Starro actually had like a talking part,
Yeah.
I would rate it higher. But Starro served a purpose. Starro brought together the team, and
Yes.
Starro executed the.
And truthfully, like there is something to be said about the fact that it didn't take away
correct,
anything from it.
correct. Which a lot of these villains,
Yes.
they, like put a
Actively
halt to the movie.
took away from it.
Yeah.
I think I'll go with a B just because.
Okay.
Although, there was it served its purpose. I do think, once again, it didn't necessarily like push anything forward, necessarily, but it didn't take anything either.
Correct. Correct.
So it wasn't like there wasn't anything like fantastic about it, but it wasn't gonna go like destroy the film.
I agree. All right, moving on to the next movie, which is another Elseworld movie. I would consider is The Batman, and several villains here.
Yes,
they take the whole screwing up in the beginning years of DCEU with throwing a bunch of villains in throwing a bunch of heroes in and failing to build up the villains. They do the flip side of that, where they throw a bunch of villains in, and the hero doesn't really need to be built up because he's been built up, quote unquote, in other movies.
Yes.
That it was not the same character, but it is the same character. That kind of thing, right? So smart, absolutely smart. And Matt Reeves did a fantastic job in this movie. We have the main villain, which I think would be...
I would say the Riddler.
The Riddler is the main villain.
Yes.
Followed by... would you say that Penguin's the second villain, or would you say that... what's his name?
Falcone?
Falcone. Carmoni, right? Like Carmine Falcone.
Yes.
There you go.
I would put Falcone is number 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And Penguin is 3.
Okay. That's very accurate there. Riddler was fantastic. I love the Riddler. I'm giving the Riddler right off the jump like an A+ because I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
What's your grade?
I'll agree with you on that. I feel like it was an A+. I feel like it was he played that creepy
serial killer vibe.
Yes, like he had that down so well. Like he had your skin crawling as you were watching Paul Dano.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul Dano's such a clutch actor as well. Carmine Falcone, I'm actually also going to give it an A because I think John Turturro did a fantastic job with him and his mobster mentality.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to give it an A-. A-.
Yep.
Where are you at there?
I'll say I'll go with a B+.
Okay. All right.
Fun fact: my wife thinks that he looks like my dad, especially in this role.
Oh my goodness,
she thinks he looks like my dad.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I need to meet your dad still.
Yeah.
So I'll be the judge next time. And then Penguin.
Yes.
I thought he brought a lot to the role. It was a different interpretation of the Penguin.
Yes.
More of that mobster mentality as well. But I'm actually going to go ahead and give him a B+ as the Penguin. So what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll give him a B+ as well. Like I feel like they were 3 solid enough villains. They gave him enough time to create like a decent, storyline going along. I think this is a little bit more like, although I think on screen, Penguin has been more towards like some other like idea of him.
Correct. Yeah.
But I think this actually goes more towards his more origin. I think he falls closer into like a mobster mentality in most traditional like DC storylines.
Correct. Yeah, it is definitely a against the grain kind of performance here. All right. Moving on to the next movie, which is Black Adam.
Yes.
And this is one of those ones where it's like identify the villain. Like it's technically like the government, right? Like isn't it like it's? I mean, I don't even know. Like, who's the main villain here, right? Like it's very interesting because they have a lot of these heroes, right, that come in and they're like trying to stop Black Adam, but then like Black Adam is trying to stop this like militia, right? Like,
I would say like that militia would be like, I think that force as a whole would be like the villain set.
Yeah, but like, would you consider the militia like a government force, right? Or would you consider it like, I don't know, I guess a rogue force? I don't know.
I didn't see them as like a strictly like governmental force. Like they were more like an outside force.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I mean, maybe that's gonna kind of show in our rating of this situation, and we're not even 100% sure
Yeah,
what these people are.
we're not sure who to grade here.
Yeah.
Dang. Like I didn't factor in Black Adam here when
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know who to grade. Let's grade the militia. I guess we'll grade
I think
the
militia is like the only person the grouping as a whole that you can really rank in this situation.
If I have to give a ranking here, I'm gonna give like a D-. I'm not gonna give an F here.
Yeah.
Because like it's not their fault that they are having to be a villain to a villain. Like it's not their fault, right?
Yeah.
It's just the quote unquote hero of the movie happens to be a villain, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give D-.
Yeah. I think I knew knew where this was going. I think we all kind of wanted the charisma of The Rock to kind of carry this movie, and we kind of knew where it was going.
Correct. Yeah. He needed some sort of conflict, and they did the best they could with what they had.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of waffling between like a D- and an F. So I guess I'll lean towards, and I'll go with the D-, kind of match up with you.
Okay, yeah, welcome to the club. All right, not a whole lot to say there. Let's move on to Shazam: Fury of the Gods. So I'm just gonna go ahead and classify like Helen Mirren and the other Lucy Liu and Rachel Ziegler as one villain.
Okay,
right? I don't feel like we need to give each of them a grade.
Yeah. Although I think I will say there is a vast difference between the quality of their performances in this. Like legitimately, like I think there's like a 2, maybe 3 letter grade difference on in the range of their abilities.
Yeah, Lucy Liu just phoned this in, man.
She's a straight up F.
Yeah. Oh, she's beyond an F. I don't know if there is anything beyond an F, but she's there. And Helen Mirren is in a different movie. Like she's in a completely different movie. But if you look at her role and then like delete every role outside of that, she does a great job. She does a great job. And even Rachel Ziegler's character does a good job in that movie.
She does all right.
She's not an F, but she's I don't know, man. It's interesting. But let's grade them as a whole. All right. So do the best. Put your best thinking cap on and try to get a grade here. But between Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, all the way down there, right? Would you meet in the middle, or would you? I don't know. I don't think Helen Mirren's an A. That's for sure.
No, I don't think she's an A.
I think at best Helen Mirren's probably like a C+.
Yeah, I would
like the F of Lucy Liu is just so bad.
I think I'm gonna go with. Let's see. I'll do a flat D.
Okay.
Because I do think Helen Mirren was relatively solid, and I think I do have I think she was like a solid I'd put like Mirren at like a B. I feel like she did.
Wow.
I think she did a solid job there.
Okay.
I think she had essentially almost no help from anyone else.
Oh yeah.
So,
and it just shows with just the quality of who she is as an actress. So,
and I felt like Zegler was just kind of there.
Yeah.
Truthfully, in my mind, I think I'm higher on Mirren and a little lower on Zegler than you are.
You are, yeah, you are. I'm gonna give this a D-. Overall as a performance. It was very forgettable.
Yeah.
Very forgettable. Honestly, I feel like the movie just mainly focused on like the hero, and then the villain was really like them trying to be a team again, that kind of thing, right?
It was really about getting their family back together.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Now on to this one. This is a hard one because the villain is so like obscure, like the Flash. So
yeah, it's a very ambiguous
time.
idea.
I feel like time is the villain.
Yes,
time is the villain here. However, there is this being that we don't really have a name for because you would in the comic books you would call him Reverse Flash, or you would call him Zoom, or you would call him Godspeed. Like you would call any other iteration of this character in the comic books, right? But instead,
he's not really any of them.
He's not. Yeah. Instead, he's not really any of them at all.
No.
Instead, he's this like negative Flash.
Yeah.
Or I don't even know what the heck they classify him as. But that's the villain. It's like time. I don't know. Do you want to grade time here? Or do you want to grade this entity that they made up? Like, I don't know. It's tough.
I think wherever you put it, it's not great.
I think either way, I think they get the same grade, and it's a big, giant, fat F for me because I don't know. They had the greatest source material in DC as their script, right? Like potential script. I say potential script because they did not follow the source material at all.
I mean, legitimately,
Flashpoint Paradox is one of the greatest storylines of all time.
No, it's one of the greatest storylines of all time, and it is, gosh, the animated movie. Oh my gosh, so good.
I know. All you got to do is do half of what the movie did, and you would get a rating. Like that's it. You do half, of that, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go with you in the F. Like it was, like it was like
I didn't even officially say my grade yet, but yes, it's an F. You're right. You're correct.
I think it's just it was a really the movie was decent, but when we're going by storyline wise, they did a relatively good job on the hero's journey, but the villain was just. It was not good and not there, and like you didn't get a whole lot of them. You didn't get any. I mean, it was. They didn't do a super great job of explaining what was actually happening in a lot of ways either.
You brought Zod back. I don't. Like, are we talking about Zod as a villain here?
Yeah.
I feel like he wasn't even like he was an event. He wasn't necessarily a driving villain in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he was insignificant to Flash, but like. Not at the same time. It was so strange. It was so strange.
He was the only physical representation of a villain, but he wasn't really.
If anything, it might bring his grade down from Man of Steel. Like he didn't even get his full time to shine like he did in that. Like he was just kind of a caricature of himself.
Yes.
Like it was strange. So strange.
It was very. That's a good way to put it. It was like they were told who Zod was, but was not given any of the motivations or anything like that. Or like, this is what this is what he looks like, but they weren't given anything that actually made Zod Zod.
Correct. So we're in agreement here. This is a solid F.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Moving on. Blue Beetle.
Yes.
Blue Beetle. So we are going to grade, I feel like we need to combine Susan Sarandon's character and Omac's character as well.
We can do that, yeah.
Brandon Braun. That's basically what this was.
Yeah.
The fact that Susan Sarandon was in this movie was absolutely crazy because I mean, she has a lot of acting chops and she has a rap sheet that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think I had a hard time buying into her character.
Yeah.
But for what she produced, she kind of allowed the main characters in Blue Beetle to shine because they got more play off of her than she had play off of them. Like she was just basically told, you're
Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
Is essentially,
You're Susan Sarandon. Be a little bit more jaded and take control of things. Like that's basically what
essentially the idea was like your presence is enough. Is kind of like the idea that I see there. Like you're not actually like really acting. You're just on screen as a presence.
And then Omac, which is I think what is his name? Raul, I think his name is in the movie. No, Ignacio. That's right. Ignacio.
Yes.
He's a man of few words. Like he doesn't say a whole lot. And then like the brief moment of backstory you get of him, and I mean, you're kind of like, I kind of feel sorry for the guy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not even like full villain, but he puts on a suit and he fights, right?
It almost, but the only problem is it feels almost too late.
Correct. Too late
to actually like. Yeah. It'd be more interesting to see them like build.
Yeah.
Slowly, like
like
he's
a close but no cigar kind of thing, right? Like
or like it'd been interesting like if you got in a flash like early and like you're seeing like he's building the pieces together.
Yes.
To where it's like then he instead of it seem like very jarring at the end.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of the Blue Beetle movie. I love the Blue Beetle movie.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
I think they did a good job. Yes.
Yeah. Overall, like, characters were great. And so great that James Gunn's considering Blue Beetle as one of the first DCU characters introduced into the universe. So, we're combining the grade, and I'm going to go grade C. That's what I'm giving it. I'm giving it a C.
Yep. I'm going to go with a C-.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I think it was all right.
Yeah. Villain definitely could have been better, but I think for what they had to work with, they did a great job. They did a great job as far as overall movie.
Yep.
The villains, they're just kind of there. Just kind of there. That's how I describe it. Alrighty. Final and last movie to grade here. I know.
Well,
we've gone on way too long.
Yeah.
But here we are. Aquaman 2.
Yes.
Lost Kingdom.
Yes.
Villain. Forgettable.
Yes.
Very, very, very forgettable, even though he is Black Manta.
Yeah, considering the fact that he was also a villain in the original Aquaman and we did not mention him.
Correct. And I think the reason we didn't mention him is because we knew
he was going to be the big bad.
Yes, correct. Yes. And I think that's I unintentionally did that, but it makes sense.
It's telling.
It is telling. It is telling because I mean, I guess that was kind of his origin, right?
Yes.
Like, because he was kind of like a kid who was like grumpy in the first movie, and now he's like full-fledged angry, right?
Yes.
Like, so he's just trying to get revenge for the death of his dad in this movie, and he does that by gaining the like ability of a dark trident, right?
Yes.
It is the most recent DCEU movie that has come out, so we are like months removed from this movie. Honestly, like this actor is fantastic. I fully enjoy Black Manta actor as a whole, and his performance was actually not bad in this movie, but it wasn't great either.
No.
So I don't know, man. This is. I feel like this is gonna end up for me like a C.
Yeah.
Maybe a C. Actually, a C minus. It's gonna be a C minus. Yeah. It just wasn't enough for me. It was just kind of there.
Yeah.
So what are you feeling here?
I was thinking a D plus.
Okay.
Like,
all right. I respect that actually. I do. I respect that. Was the being possessed by the trident a little too much for you?
I mean, yeah, and it was just like I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of like lasting effect of him to me. You know?
Yeah. Like the stakes were. They made the stakes in the movie feel like they were like world ending, but when you actually look at it, there weren't really any stakes there. Like I feel like the stakes weren't really that massive. Like cool, you're mining this element that could destroy the entire world, right? But we didn't get any. I mean, we got 10 minutes or less of the outside world, the surface world, being affected by whatever the heck he's doing, right? Yeah. So theoretically, all of this is taking place underwater, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is like, he's supposed to be world ending, and this will be maybe the biggest legacy of the entire DCEU is the possibility of being world ending. But do you care about that world?
Yeah. You know what? You know what? That's very telling. That is very, very telling. And you know what? This is the movie that actually sparked this whole villain conversation that we're having today because we brought this up on like, were we spoiled by the great villains that we had in the like pre DCEU / so we wanted to kind of get a grade on villains in general because this villain was so weak that it didn't really live up to the hero aspect of what was going on here. And I mean, the hero's performance was meh.
Yeah.
So very forgettable. Very forgettable. I don't see. I personally, I watched the movie once in theaters. I honestly don't see myself watching this movie ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough.
I think the only reason I would watch it again is if, like, I was forcing somebody through a watch of the DCEU,
Oof.
which seems like torture.
You would go to jail
Yeah.
if you tried to do that, dude.
Yes.
I would call the cops on you.
Yeah. Now, I will say, like, the DCEU had a great opportunity to do something so out of this, world and so mind melding in this movie. And they knew where the finish line was. They should have just let the world end and just, actually,
that might have been interesting to see.
Actually
end it all.
Yes. Just
and
end
then,
it.
Boom. Restart.
Yes, they knew they were restarting.
Yeah,
they knew where they were at. They had plenty of time where they could have done something with
Shimano.
it. Just end it.
And why are we not putting you in charge of DCU?
Yeah,
this is insane.
Yeah,
great job, man. Once again, our writer, our local writer here, saves the day. Yep. Fantastic idea. I would give that villain an A+.
Yep.
And the world, fantastic.
Because just think about that moment. The whole time you're watching this, and Aquaman's gonna win.
Right.
This is the last movie.
Yeah.
It's gonna end with a happy ending, and then literally it's just the world just
ends.
Falls to pieces.
Jeez, dude. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that would be fantastic. I mean, they should have did it with the Flash. That's what they should have done.
Yeah,
that was their moment.
Yep.
Then they didn't even need to do that. They didn't even do the Aquaman movie. Period.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you said you ended on a D- or D+. D+. Sorry. You said D+.
Yes, D+.
Okay. All right. So with all of that being said, that is our DCEU wrap up of villain grades. So. I've been keeping track of the grades throughout the time we were going through this. That was, you probably were looking over here why is he on his phone so much?
Yeah.
No, I'm keeping track. There's grades there.
Yes.
So we will average these out, and then we're gonna do the MCU version because this was fun. This is fun. Just reliving the moments. We kind of went heavy in the earlier movies and kind of flew through the later half.
Yes.
But I think it was worth it. I think the earlier aspects of the movie kind of set the tone for what we ended up with. So yeah, it was fun to dive in there. Any closing thoughts, Shimano?
Just this is going to be one of those things where the DCEU, who will it even be remembered 20 years from now? It is going to be one of those things where
That's a great question to ask.
Is it going to be one of those things where people forget the fact that there was even a third and fourth Superman movie?
Ooh, I actually hold on a second. Speaking of forgetting, Snyder Cut. We didn't even talk about
Snyder Cut. We did forget the Snyder Cut.
What would you grade? I mean, Steppenwolf I think gets the same exact grade, but they kind of add a little extra light to Darkseid.
Yes.
And he does kind of get a little bit more of that Thanos role as far as overarching villain, right? But it's kind of incomplete again. It's better, but it's not better at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have to grade Darkseid and Zack Snyder's,
I was thinking it'd be a C.
I'm dead on with you, man. I'm thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, it was. You had something.
Yeah,
you had something. It was interesting the way they did this whole Snyder Cut thing, which I feel like they're doing. Zack Snyder is going to be known for this for the rest of his life. Is going back and making his movies quote slightly better, not completely better.
Yeah,
slightly better, because apparently once Rebel Moon Part 2 comes out, there is a director's cut that supposedly is phenomenal.
Dude, Zack Snyder needs to get better editors then.
I know.
Something
I know. Or
if there's supposedly if you have to supposedly add an hour and a half onto whatever you're doing, then you don't have a good editor. Dude, you need to get yourself a better editor.
Gosh, dude. It's wild.
That's what you're pointing at, because it's not.
Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that was the last final note. It was adding another grade. But sorry, I interrupted you. But yeah, will we remember this in 20 years? Probably not, to be honest with you. I feel like James Gunn's going to come out blazing, and I feel like
I hope so.
I trust me, I hope so too, man. I love the DC and the characters in this, and I mean, the foundation that I have built in me with the comic books and then the animated series, it is. Man, it's next level. It really is.
Yeah.
And these characters, a large portion of like my personality and my thoughts are come from the foundation that was built with the DC comics and their creations. I don't know, man. I think there is a brighter future on the horizon.
I hope so, yes.
Yeah, and I'm very, very interested to see where they go.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I think it's as long as they give James Gunn the space that he needs to create it.
Correct. Which he's in charge, so technically, I think he should have the space.
Yeah, as long as he isn't getting pushed by Warner Brothers around and stuff like that. Right. I think if he has the space and he has the time to be able to do it, and he was given the slate to make the choices that he wanted to.
Yep.
I think the biggest issue, was that step between the greediness between Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. It just like created this like snowball effect to where like they just could never get themselves back on track because they had driven so far off the main road.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Hopefully, you can just stay true to what the plan is, and whatever the plan is should be his plan, right?
Yep.
All right. Long-winded, long podcast. This is what happens when T-Roll's gone.
Yep.
And if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give us a like, man. Give us a shout out, a 5-star review. If you didn't like it, blame it T-Roll. That's it. Blame T-Roll. So yeah. Anyway, that was our DCEU ranking or grading of villains. So for Shamato and myself, Sandy, we really appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time, you peasants.